Welcome to Season 3 of Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm Josh Sharfstein, Vice Dean for Public Health Practice and Community Engagement and a former Secretary of Maryland's Health Department. Our goal is to bring scientific evidence and experience to the public health news of the day through informative interviews with scientists, community leaders, policy experts, public health officials, clinicians, and more. If you have ideas or questions for us to cover, please email us at publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Today, I speak to the extraordinary Marin Alsop, who is finishing her last season as music director of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra and is the chief conductor of the Vienna Radio Symphony. Our topic is the performing arts and the pandemic, what's been lost, what's been gained, and what's ahead. Let's listen. Marin Alsop, it is such an honor to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to start with a question about the difficult year this has been for the performing arts. What has been lost because of the pandemic?
Well, thank you. Firstly, thanks for having me. I think it's been a very, very difficult year, obviously, especially for the performing arts, because all live gatherings have been canceled. Debut weeks with orchestras have been canceled. So many of my students and my fellowship winners were looking forward to, I feel for the young people who are just getting their careers off the ground and everything came to such an abrupt halt. I think we've missed out on connecting in spaces together to enjoy art, to enjoy the beauty of humanity. I think that has felt like a real deficit. I hope that coming out of this, many artists will survive. I think in some orchestras have managed to navigate it pretty well, but some of the smaller organizations and some of the bigger organizations too, you look at the Metropolitan Opera, that they furloughed everyone immediately. And this is a big step to take and a big hole to crawl back out of. So I think there's a lot of work to be done.
I wonder, when people talk about the anxiety they felt this year, the sense of isolation, how much of that relates to these shutdowns in the arts and inability to connect and experience different types of performances together and engage?
Yeah, I think that, of course, you've got a very, very important point, which is that we are social creatures, we human beings, and we share our stories. It's about a narrative, whether it's a symphony that you go to experience together and the narrative speaks to you in a certain way, or whether it's an art exhibit that you go to see, or a play that you go. It's about sharing stories and being the best, bringing out the best in humanity. And, we feel changed by these experiences and we feel moved. I mean, maybe that's the thing too, this sort of emotional stasis that we've been in, waiting, not moving forward, not moving backward, not moving sideways, just sort of waiting. I think it's been very difficult. And I feel my heart goes out, especially to so many of the artists that really have struggled to support themselves this year. But, along with every crisis, there are opportunities. And I think that's what I try to focus on.
Well, tell me about those opportunities.
I think that the shock of this really, and the fact that we had to rethink the way we share what we do with the public, has enabled orchestras certainly to move into the 21st century in a way that they were somehow paralyzed prior to this. It was so hard, and it was really virtually impossible to do any kind of digital streaming, any kind of digital content, make recordings has been really, really a challenge. There's so many rules and regulations. And I think I was amazed at how quickly everyone came on board to outfit the halls with cameras, to suddenly start to incorporate digital offerings into what we do. I'm not saying that should be the end point, but to have some kind of hybrid integrated content that we share, and to use the technology that's available to us today and that appeals, of course, to younger generations, I think is really critical to the survival of the art form in any case.
Mm-hmm. It can broaden the audience, both geographically and socioeconomically, perhaps.
Absolutely. And then, of course, another incredible byproduct, I think, has been the social movements that have moved us forward to discuss issues of inequality and underrepresentation. Particularly, look, classical music is one of the most conservative industries on the planet, too. Very, very resistant to any kind of change. And the fact that finally we're able to really seek out female composers, female conductors, people, underrepresented people on stage, looking toward diversity, which has been a huge passion of mine, for years, and especially since I started in Baltimore. And it's really been an uphill battle, I have to say, until this year.
Yeah, tell me what happened this year in that respect.
Well, I think because of the Black Lives Matter movement, I think because of the ripple effect of the Me Too movement, finally, there's, maybe people are forced to be better. Sometimes that happens, but eventually I really believe in the goodness, the fundamental goodness of people, and that eventually they will embrace the change. And so perhaps at the moment we're in that phase of just trying to accept it, but we now look at programs for how inclusive they are, which is something that I've advocated for several years, but it was very hard to get traction on. And I'm absolutely thrilled to see that sea change happening.
So it sounds like you've had changes in the way that the performing arts performs digitally, virtually. You've had a reexamination of some of the policies and inclusion of the arts, which has been for the better. And now with the vaccine and a little bit of hope for the pandemic, what do you see looking forward? Is this a case of going back to what was there before, or kind of a build back better scenario? What's in that scenario for you?
Well, I try never to go backward. I don't know, my feeling is I try to drive the car looking through the front windshield instead of the rear view mirror. And I do know that some institutions and some people will want to go back to what we were, but I think we need to go to a better version of what we were, a more inclusive, a more tolerant, a more embracing, a more engaged version of what we were. And I think everyone will benefit in the end. So that's my hope for the future.
What role do you think that the performing arts will play in the actual recovery? I mean, we're facing several months of hopefully gradually relaxing restrictions. I don't think there's a bell that goes off that says the pandemic's over, but what role will the arts play in helping us kind of regain our sense of self, that we're not in this impaired kind of state that we've been stuck in?
I think that we really have a chance to embrace the arts in a way that's entirely healing. That's what art is. It's a healing power. It's a transformative power. I mean, not to get too border on hyperbole, but art can give comfort where words cannot. Music can speak to people, can fill voids, can give expression to those events where words just escape us. And sharing a space where everyone's experiencing this is incredibly powerful. I'm hoping that we see not a revival, but perhaps a real interest in the arts that we haven't seen in the past. And I would hope that we could look toward our leadership, our current leadership, to understand how important the arts are toward building the kind of country that we want to have, a country filled with creativity, with innovative thinking, with tolerance, with people who want to have open discussions. This is what art brings to the table, these kind of skills. And I think, the world, but especially the United States, has missed the boat on the power of arts education for our kids. The skills and the sense of self that the arts can bring to young people is, there's nothing else like it, really.
This is a moment where we get to decide, in a way, what recovery really means.
And what our values are.
And arts are just... Yeah, what our values are, and it's an opportunity to really rethink some of the relationships that society has with the arts. And I know that after just an incredible experience that you've had in Baltimore, where an entire city is deeply appreciative of your 14 years at the helm of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, you were retiring from Baltimore in August, I understand. But I hope that virtually, if not in person here in Baltimore, we can still experience your vision and all the amazing power that you bring to the arts.
Well, thank you. I intend to stay connected for a long time, and I actually have a contract with the orchestra to conduct at least 3 weeks every year for 5 years. So at least there'll be a consistency. And of course, I'm the head of the conducting program at Peabody, which I absolutely adore. So, and, I can't get too far away from the Orchids program. Just seeing those young people blossom and grow, that's an inspiration for me.
Well, you've been so involved in the city of Baltimore in so many different ways. I'm glad we won't be going through acute Marin Alsop withdrawal here.
No such thing.
Thanks so much for joining me for the podcast today.
My pleasure. Nice to see you.
Public Health on Call is produced by Josh Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, and Stephanie Desmond. Audio production by Spencer Greer, Niall Owen McCusker, C.N. Oates, and Matthew Martin, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Production support from Catherine Ricardo and Neiman Outland. Social media support from Brenda Haggader, Grace Holes Fernandez, and Caroline Wong. Thank you for listening.